Hello YouTube! I'm Nye from Finale Guitar in Sheffield, open Monday to Friday 1 till 5 on Cherry Street, and you're watching Folk Friend, your one-stop shop for Celtic backing guitar tutorials. In today's video I'm going to be talking about one of my absolute favourite folk jazz fusion guitarists, an absolute pioneer who invented a really cool fusion style. He's completely unique, but sadly very few recordings of him survive today. So I'm hopefully going to show you some of the tips and tricks that he kind of created, and then we're going to have a look at some of the small amount of leftover recordings of his playing in the second part of this video, and we're going to use those to analyse some of his really cool trademark features and show you how you can incorporate those into your own playing as well. So this is about Peerie Willy Johnson. He's a really interesting guitarist. He grew up on the Shetland island of Yell, which is off the north coast of Scotland. And in the 1920s, when he was young, shortwave radio arrived in Yell, and he managed to tune into an American station which played a lot of gypsy jazz, the Django Reinhardt, Stephen Grappelli, Hot Club de Paris kind of style of stuff. So listening to this stuff, he worked out all these interesting chords and got very familiar with the Pomp style of strumming, which sounds something like this. Those kinds of things, and then he incorporated all that into the regional folk music of Shetland and came up with this really interesting kind of hybrid style. So the first thing that you need to know if you want to sound like Peerie Willy is how to do the Pomp strumming pattern, and I've covered this before in my Django Reinhardt video, which is available in the corner right now, but we'll have another look at it very quickly. I'm going to use a D chord to demonstrate this, but it's not your average D chord, it's a C chord slid up 2 frets. And the reason that I'm using this one is because the more strings that you have fretted, the less open strings, the better this strumming pattern will sound. So with this, I'm going to let my middle finger mute the G string, and I'm going to get my index finger muting the top string. And that way, when I do the pattern, it's going to sound staccato. So what you're going to do is hit the root note of whatever chord you're on, in this case it's on the A string, with a downstroke. Then you're going to do another downstroke which hits all the other strings, and as soon as you've done that second one, you're going to pull your chord off on the left hand, muting the strings, like that. That's why you always want to use chords which fret as many strings as possible, and ideally keep the open strings muted. Once you get good at doing things like that, you can start adding in occasionally just filling in the upstrokes. So what I'm doing there is down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, like that. When you're playing this pattern, you really want to play it very, very swung. If you imagine the quavers or the eighth beats, those are going to be like ta 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 ta. So when you do the pattern, it's not some sort of boring straight affair like that. It's a swung version. Like that. Ta 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 ta. When you're practicing it, it might be worth finding a recording of a swing drummer, like the one that I've linked in the box down below, and use that as your metronome. That'll help you get the swing feel in your playing. Finally, if you don't understand what the difference between swung and straight is, I made a video that explains exactly that and shows it in various different ways that are easy to get your head around. It's in the corner right now, go and check it out. Sadly, there aren't many recordings of Peerie Willy, but there is an album called Willy's World, which I really recommend. I'm going to be demonstrating some things using one of the tracks off it, which is the recording of Harvest Home that's on there. You can actually listen to it for free, thanks to a free trial from Amazon Music. I've put a link in the box down below. They'll give you 3 months of unlimited listening, and you can download songs for offline listening as well. Please do go and do it, because I get a little commission if you do. Even if you don't actually pay them any money, if you just take the free trial and cancel it straight away, you still get 3 months to listen to the songs in. So support the channel please if you can. Go and get your free trial and go and listen to the album, because it's absolutely brilliant. The next thing that we're going to have a look at is Peerie Willy's chord choices. And there are certain progressions that he uses all the time. There's certain styles of chord that he really obviously liked because you could change between them very, very fast. So I'm going to show you a few of those. The first thing is any chord shape where you keep your hand in this position without really having to change it too much and just slide it around. There's lots of good options for these, so I'm going to show you the ones that are useful for the key of D, and those are the ones we're going to be using when we get on to having a look at the tune. So the first one is this D chord that I showed you before. Then you're going to slide that up 2 frets, take your middle finger off, move your index finger down so that it makes a little mini bar on the top 4 strings on the 5th fret, and then you can add your little finger on the 7th fret of the G string, and that will give you a really nice E minor 7 chord. It's a really good one because you're fretting all the strings, so you can get a really nice staccato feel with that left hand mute. Next thing is going to be the 3rd chord. You can either use F sharp minor 7, which is that last chord just slid up 2 frets, or you can do what Peerie Willy tends to do, which is to remove the little finger so that you're playing D major in the first inversion. If you don't know how to build chords, you can find out a lot more about that in my blog on the subject, which tells you how to build every type of chord and what they're for. So go and check it out, it's free read, it's linked on my website in the corner of the screen. Chord 4 in D major is G, and the way that we're going to get that is using this same kind of shape. We're going to just move up so that we're playing our ring finger on the 10th fret of the A string. That's going to be our root note, and then we're going to make the equivalent of a C major shape, but all the way up here. And that's going to be our chord 4, which is G. Chord 5, we could move that up 2 more frets and we'd have A7 if we played all the strings. You could play that without the ring finger so that you've got the open A string at the bottom if you want the low root note in there. But what Peerie Willy actually does is when he gets up here to G, he tends to play lower down for these, and he switches to the other type of shape that you see him use a lot. And these are what I call the thumb shapes. So you're going to get your thumb, put it round the back of the neck and put it on the G note on the bottom string. Then you're going to let that finger kind of mute, well, let that thumb kind of mute the A string, like that. Then you're going to put your ring finger on the 5th fret of the D string, your middle finger on the 4th fret of the G string, and your index finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And that's going to give you a really nice alternative to a G major bar chord, which is going to be much easier to switch to at speed in the context that I'll come on to in a second. Like that. If you slide that up 2 frets, you've got a kind of A chord. And what we're going to do, because this is chord 5, in jazz land, chord 5 always becomes a dominant chord. The reason for that is that dominant chords want to resolve down a 5th. If I play A, and then I play A7, your ear goes, oh, I really would like to hear a D next. Like that. And if it doesn't hear D next, it'll get quite upset. Like that. That's what it should be. So with chord 5, because chord 5 always resolves back to chord 1, and that marks the ends of sections in Celtic music, chord 5 is always going to be resolving down a 5th, because 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that's a 5th down. So chord 5 can always be a dominant chord. So Peerie Willy with his thumb shapes is going to play A7 like this. Thumb round the back, flattened index finger across the top 4 strings, all on the 5th fret, and then you get one of your other fingers, ideally your middle finger if you can stretch that far, put it on the 6th fret of the G string, and that gives you this. So we had G and A7, and it's really easy to slide between those. We could also play B minor 7, which is our next chord, with this shape. Slide your 2 little bars up, and that gives you that for B minor 7. That is probably not what Peerie Willy would do, but that is useful if you're starting out with these shapes. Chord number 6 for B minor as well, you can also just play a B minor 7 bar chord. This is a nice easy one. Just a bar on the top 5 strings, then you put your middle finger on the 3rd fret of the B string and your ring finger on the 4th fret of the D string, and that gives you B minor 7. For the final chord in D major's chord scale, Peerie Willy uses a really interesting chord option which I wouldn't really have thought of without seeing him do it, and it's this. So if you look at that, it's basically an F sharp 7 bar chord, and if you play a 7 chord in the 2nd inversion, what you hear is a half diminished chord with the root note being the 5th note of the original 7 chord. Now I appreciate that's really confusing. If you don't already know about the music theory behind that, that will have gone straight over your head. But basically, make an F7 bar chord and just miss off the bottom string, and you've got Peerie Willy's alternative to the 7 chord in D major. And of course this shape can slide anywhere, so you can use it as the 7 chord in any key if you put it in the right place. So that's it from me for this week, folk friends. That's the end of part 1. Part 2 of this video will be out next Saturday at 12:30, and in it I'll be covering how you can use these chords to sound exactly like Peerie Willy. We'll be looking at his recording of Harvest Home, which appears on the Willy's World album, and I'll be analysing exactly how the chords in that work and how you can take his chord progressions and chord ideas and apply them to your own playing using the shapes we covered today. Hit the little subscribe button, you'll get a little notification when I put that up. Hit the thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video, and leave me a comment in the box down below. Let me know who you are, where you're playing, and anything you would like to see me make more videos about. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all next weekend.